an incredible movie called Spartacus. If you've never seen the movie Spartacus, it shows hundreds of people being executed by crucifixion. And that imagery, as you're sharing, you know, of what happened to Christians in the...
Isn't that where they got the term Roman candles?
I'm sorry?
I've heard that. That's where they got the term Roman candles.
Oh, wow.
Because he burned them at night. That may be far reach.
I will follow up on that. So, hey, learn something new all the time. Great. Okay. Yes.
I think we've probably all been in Demas' shoes before, and this idea of like, I'll never turn on Christ. We look at the apostles; they were in those shoes before, and throughout Timothy, I really appreciate Paul's idea of following Christ is just not for the faint of heart. It's hard.
Right.
So you know, it's hard to tell if Paul is giving him a little grace here and recognizing that it is hard and that there are going to be some that do. The world, at least now, seems a little easier than following Christ. But I think that just fits in the theme of Timothy's writing.
Right. Right. Yeah, and we. And I'm talking out loud, just following through your thread there, that the final script hasn't been written. It is in this instance, but what happens after Paul is gone, and you know, you never know.
I often think, especially this year, what would it take for me to love the world more? And I think we all probably have that breaking point. And you know, I think it's a valid question that we have to ask ourselves to affirm our walk in Christ.
Right.
What would it take for me to do what Demas did?
Right. Hey, thank you. Okay, so others, Crescens has gone to Galatia. This isn't something that, you know, like negative. He's just stating, you know, some of his co-workers have left. Crescens has gone to Galatia, Titus to Dalmatia. So in that phrase, you know, Paul had given directives to Titus in Crete. So this is just kind of a letting know to Timothy what's happened to some of our co-workers. So again, apparently Titus has finished his work in Crete. He's gone on to Dalmatia, which is on the eastern side of Italy, Yugoslavia. It's Croatia now, so that's where Dalmatia would be. Only Luke is with me. And you see kind of this huge backstory about, you know, Luke is with Paul, and what would Luke be doing? You know, he's a physician, we know that, but you think about you know, with Paul, and Luke is composing, writing. You know, you see the origins of the Gospel of Luke and the book of Acts, which are 2 volumes, and he's writing, you know, the narratives of what's happened or is happening to Paul. Of course, Acts doesn't have an ending to it. This is after the fact, but and then get Mark. And these are words that just flip the script from Demas. Get Mark and bring him with you, this is Timothy, because he is helpful to me in my ministry. And this is a flip script, right? What, you know, you got Demas who begins well but does not end well. What's the story of Mark, right? You go back to the book of Acts. As I recollect, the first introduction we have to Mark, who's often referred to as John Mark, is when Peter is released from prison. In Acts 12, he goes to the home of Mary, the mother of who? Mark, who is known as John, we call him John Mark oftentimes. He is referred to in the scripture as the cousin of Barnabas. So, excuse me. So, Mark is selected when to go on a missionary journey. When does that happen? Verse 1, Acts chapter 13. So, they go to Cyprus, and Mark deserts, I guess that would be the word. He leaves Barnabas and Paul in Pamphylia when they leave Cyprus, and doesn't stay with them. So you go through all of Acts 13, 14, that first missionary journey. Then you have the Jerusalem Council. And in Acts 15, you have Barnabas and Paul deciding to go again on a journey to go back to see the churches. Man, I'm losing my voice for some reason. Excuse me. Too much hiking the other day. So they decide to go visit the churches that they had founded. And Barnabas wants to take his cousin, Mark. And what does Paul say? It's not going to happen. Because he deserted us on that first missionary journey. And there is such a strong disagreement that Luke says between Barnabas and Paul about Mark that Paul selects Silas, and they go on to Asia Minor, and Barnabas and Mark go on to Cyprus. Okay? So they have a parting of the way. So here is John Mark, who's, home is in Jerusalem. He's on this first missionary journey, leaves the missionary party. A few years later, now he goes with his cousin Barnabas to Cyprus, but Paul goes on. And you read about, the second missionary journey in Acts 16, 17, 18. So later, you read about Mark in Colossians and Philemon. Even Peter makes reference to Mark in 1 Peter chapter 5, that he is in Rome. And so now, you read 2 Timothy chapter 4, that Paul is saying to Timothy, bring Mark because he is helpful for me in my ministry. An incredible story. Totally the opposite of Demas' story, of where Mark doesn't start well, if you will, as far as, being a part of the first missionary outreach, and yet bring him. I need him with me. So, Timothy, you get Mark because he is helpful to me in my ministry. This is just kind of like the gospel in miniature. Oh, I think. So, you have this flipped script where Mark, who writes the gospel, obviously, and as a story of redemption, that it's personal for him as he sees the story of Jesus, that a person can start one's life all over again, right? It's just. I can remember when I first became a Christian, I would read all these names at the ends of these letters, and I'm like, of course, I didn't know who all these people were. But as you're reading through this story, this is the story. This is the story of us. These are these stories of people who, these are real life people, and you get to see how, again, like a story like Mark, that one can start one's life all over again. So we go on, and you know, again, I mean, you could spend all day just talking about that story, but then he says, I sent Tychicus to Ephesus, and again, this is a word that's familiar to us. He's the one who brought the letter to the church at Ephesus from the first Roman imprisonment. He's made reference to in Colossians. So he brings these letters, the general letter to the churches in Asia Minor, which we know is the Ephesian letter, the Colossian letter. Apparently, he's the one who brings the letter to Titus, because he's made reference to in chapter 3, verse 12 of Titus. And now, it looks like he's the one who has brought the letter to Timothy himself. And then he says, when you come, bring the cloak. Why is he making reference to bringing a cloak? What does he say in this Timothy letter? Verse 21, do your best to get here before when? Winter. I need my clothing. I need my cloak. So he tells Timothy, bring the cloak that I left with Carpus at Troas, and my scrolls, especially the parchments. Bring the books, right? I need the books. And these scrolls, I mean, it's not like you and I have of course, whether or not you have a device or a bound Bible, you know, where they had scrolls and parchments. But Paul is telling Timothy, you be sure to bring what I had left behind, these scrolls and these parchments. I have to admit, I love the smell of a library. I just, you know, after hiking the other day up at Swanee, I go to their library, go to the 3rd floor. I know the librarians by name, and go up and I look through 40 or 50 of the newest books that are out, you know, in the theology section. I mean, I just thumb through what's being written and what is, you know, the theological writers are writing about. But I just love the sense of a sanctuary of a library. You know, it's estimated there are over 300 million books that have been written in human history. That's a lot of books. And what's the percentage of people who have read a book in a particular year? What is the percentage of people who have actually sat down and read through a book in a year?
5%.
Do what?
5%.
That's exactly right. It's 5%. Okay? You know, and because of smartphones, which, like everything, has great benefits, you know, and I learned that yesterday, that I'm sitting and just studying for today at the kitchen table. Marley gone out for a walk, and then all of a sudden it's just pouring down rain. I ran down to the garage, got in the car. I drove around the neighborhood 3 times. I thought, well, she's at so-and-so's house on the front porch. I looked in people's open garages, never found her. Came back to the house, and unknown to me, that the moment I was going down out the driveway, she was walking in the front door, and just did not see her out of the peripheral vision. But I was just, I mean, it was pouring down rain. And so I come to the house, and what does Marla say to me? The first thing, Steve, you can find me on the phone. You know, it's the locator. I got in the car, didn't even take my phone with me. But all you had to do, which I knew but didn't think to do, is look at the phone for the locator, my location, and you would have known immediately where I was. All right? But because we also have all that instant information, we are what? Not reading books. And, you know, it's huge controversy in our school systems right now about the use of mechanical devices over this very thing, about our kids are not learning how to read. And they need to read books. Grandparents, right? And like I say, like everything, you know, there's great blessings, but at the same time, there are things that we need to be challenged for. Encourage your children, nieces, nephews. How about reading a book, right? Read, study. But the thing to me that, you know, about this phrase, that Paul is nearing the end of his life. And what is most precious to him? The relationships of a Timothy and a Mark. And what? Bring my books. Bring my scrolls, my parchments. You know, we would know these as writings from the Old Covenant. You know, bring my books. You know, Paul was a very educated man. He was a Roman citizen. He studied at the feet of Gamaliel. He was a learned man to which he could communicate the gospel in a Roman and Greek world. That he could speak the languages of Greek, which was the universal language to which our New Testament is written in, because it was the English of its times, if you will, and then speak the vernacular, the local language of Latin, because Rome ruled the world of what we would know then as their world. He was a learned man. And I need my books. I need, in that time, my scrolls. I need my parchments. So, Timothy, don't fail at this. I need them. And it may be because of when he was arrested, he had to leave these behind. And it was so difficult for him that these were left behind. I know we all have memories of our growing up years, but my maternal grandmother, my mother's mother, could barely read or write. And what 2 or 3 letters that she wrote to my mother I have, and just trying to read her writing. But my other grandmother, my father's mother, was well-versed, educated, and when I would go to her country store that still survives to this day, though rotting and about to fall down, what I loved about going into her house was going into the living room and the books and the smell. I can just tell you what that living room smells like. It was because of these ancient books. And as a child, just perusing through, going through these books. Learn to love, to read, but more so than that, books. And again, for what end? If you don't know how to read, you can't read this. And so that's my sermon as we close. For the sake of your children and your grandchildren, bring the parchments, bring the scrolls. Bell's rung. Appreciate the time. Thank you for the water, Miss Francis. And I said Francis, Janice, and appreciate the time. Time to close out. Thank you, Jeremy. Hey, Miss Barbara. Good morning, good morning.
Thinking of Francis when you said
I know it.
because you were thinking of the grandmother.
I know.